Hi everyone, welcome. I'm preparing to check in on my yellow buckets with the ENC European Nightcrawler worms in them. It's been 10 days since the last time we checked in on these little guys. And for today's feeding, I've got kind of a simple, but probably a favored meal plan. I got some frozen banana peels, and I have an entire quart container here full of coffee. And I can even get my worm chow and maybe even some of my prepared bedding. That should make for a pretty good meal for these little guys. So let's get a glove on, zero in on bucket number 3, and get these little guys fed. And the other thing we could check in on while we're down here is the progress of the soaked corn cobs that we fed. And you know, I didn't even take note of how long it's been since that was done. Might be more interesting if I came down with some info, but offhand I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a couple check-ins. That includes a check-in that went almost 3 weeks or so. And that means that the corn cobs have probably been in here for about a month or so. And man, look at all those beautiful castings piling up in here. Let's see, is this piece... It's got this weird look to it. Every time I find a piece of bedding material that looks like that, it looks like a kind of a translucent or transparent little piece of material, almost like plastic. So I've been removing them when I see them. Luckily they don't show up too often. So here's the corn cob bits, and oh well, I just sprayed my face full of castings. And I figured with these, perhaps we would help them along every time we have a chance to crack them or snap them. Perhaps because they let us, we'll do so and see how things look. It looks to me like these things are getting kind of hollowed out by the worms, chewing out the softer insides. And then I guess they'll eventually make their way through to chewing up the rest of it, but the rest of it's still kind of holding up pretty good for now. Let's open up a nice big gap all the way to the bottom if possible. And then we could drop in today's feeding. Alright. These little cylindrical pieces of corn cob want to just keep rolling down into the feeding zone. And well, that's kind of where they belong anyway. So let's just get on with dropping in a little bit of my prepared bedding down into the hole. And here's the frozen banana peel. And I guess right on top of that we could return these delectable pieces of corn cob. And you could see some of this coffee out here on the surface had a nice little, actually even right here too, for all that mold growing on this coffee. That's like a little bonus for the wormies. And in addition to a little bit of my worm chow, let's give them a shot of grit too. Yeah, we're being really generous today. So it does seem to me like things look pretty good down here. The food we just gave these little guys is not very damp, almost dry if you think about it. I mean, my prepared bedding has moisture content. The used coffee is not entirely dry. It's got a little tiny bit of moisture to it, but you know, when you think of a feeding that includes a good bit of moisture, you're thinking something juicy, something that's going to really like expel some dampness and moisture, but I don't think we had any of that in today's feeding. Luckily, the material in this system feels really nice. But I figured, you know, I've got my squirt bottle here. I didn't want to apply much, but I figured let's apply at least a little. Just a little tiny bit of moisture. This coffee filter would have been down here kind of playing the role of feeding zone indicator. So now if you're a regular down here, you'll know feeding zone indicators are sort of a tradition. Not that you would have a hard time finding where you last fed. And I mean, if we come back in another 10, 12 days, chances are we'll still find leftovers of those banana peels that these little guys are getting today. So for now, I think it's a good enough feeding to tie them over. Perhaps not for a very long time, but for a little while. Seems like there's all kinds of cobwebs and things living in here. But I think we're probably in store for much of the same. We've got ourselves a feeding zone indicator that's perhaps a little bit more chewed up than the other one was in bucket number 3. Here in bucket number 4, I'm seeing similar nice castings piling up, and one of the pieces of corn cob has surfaced, and here's the other. Ooh, look at that. We had a good bunch of worms hanging out down on this one. This was a popular piece, or maybe it was just a coincidence. So once again, I'm going to see what I could do about cracking these once again, but this time without having the stuff go fly all over my face. Seems like the worms are digging this stuff. Yummy little corn cob snack. And now we can even give them some more in the form of banana peels. Another little treat for them to partake in. Just like we did in bucket number 3, here in bucket number 4, we start off with a nice little portion of prepared bedding, onto which we can start piling in the rest of the yummy foods. And I think once we fluff up the outer edge, we'll have hopefully enough material with which to cover up the feeding zone. This side, did we even fluff up this side yet? I don't know if we did. Still feels kind of compacted, so let's aerate there too a bit. And well, these pieces of corn cob, they're just gonna keep going. And whether or not having soaked them is making that big of a difference, I can't tell. So far, I'm not really seeing many extraordinary signs of their breakdown. They were kind of soft and easy to snap, just like over in bucket number 3. So I guess they're making their way down the breakdown path, slowly but surely. And that's our feeding zone indicator for bucket number 4. Last but not least, we can move on to bucket number 5. All right, now, once again, you could probably expect more of the same as we saw in the other 2 buckets. Here, I'm just trying to remember now, we put a pretty good spray of water down into bucket number 3, and bucket number 4, I kind of skipped it. And now, too, once again, I sent castings flying all over the bench. So, you know, if the moisture seemed like it was really lacking, I probably would have reached for my squirt bottle almost automatically. And the fact that I didn't, since it's right here, perhaps over in bucket number 4, we felt like the moisture level was a-okay and didn't require extra. I mean, here too, I mean, it feels pretty good. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. I'm sure if you ask a worm, they'll always probably tell you the same thing, which is to, sure, give me more moisture, give me more moisture. And it almost makes you feel like if buckets number 3 and 5 got moisture, then maybe I got to give myself some homework to peek back over into bucket number 4 and give them a little spray down too. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to lift up the plastic and at least soak their feeding zone indicator. Alright, we didn't really deplete much of the coffee that I bought down here. I thought I would do at least half of that carton and see it go bye-bye, but yeah, I guess I could have been a little bit more generous with the coffee. No big deal. Alright, I'm seeing all kinds of corn cob bits and leftover bedding scraps, all kinds of stuff floating around here near the surface. Let's put the feeding zone indicator on, and I think we'll leave it at that. So, like I said, I'll go visit bucket 4, give them a little squirt, and then we'll be done. Alright everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated too. Alright, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.